Thanks for coming back to watch the second instalment looking at my old artwork in these scrapbook albums. And this second one covers the years that I was at college. So although it only covers 2 years, there's actually more in here than was in my previous one. I'm going to try and be less chatty so that I can get through all this in one video. But those of you who've seen any of my previous videos, I can't help myself telling you stories about everything. So this might end up being split into 2 videos, and of course you will already know if I end up splitting it or not, depending on whether you're watching video 2 or video 2A. So there are quite a few pieces of artwork that I did at college which are too big to fit in these albums. So for those I took a photo and printed that off so that it's included in the album. But for the video, I'll put those bigger pieces on my big coffee table so I can show you the originals. So having said I wasn't going to be too chatty, let's get straight into the album. So I learnt my lesson from last time and I took all the artwork out of the plastic pockets so that you don't get all the reflection. And the way I've got these organised is not strictly in chronological order. But to begin with, I've got pages which I took out of my sketchbooks, which was either things I'd done perhaps for homework or just in my own time, just things that I wanted to draw. So this one to begin with, just some teasels in pencil. And then this is definitely a page out of one of my sketchbooks because it's page number 8. I wish I'd kept the sketchbooks whole, but at some point I obviously went through and just got rid of a load of stuff which was either just notes or research or anything that I didn't like, and just kept my favourite bits. So I was really happy with these, and it was just a straight pen sketches of a cushion that I had. And I've got a little note here that I did these after I'd been looking at drawings by Albrecht Dürer of cushions. So that was my inspiration for that one. This little one is a sketch of a rag doll that I made. Her name's Polly. She's still around somewhere. I've got a feeling she's probably up in the loft, so sorry she's not going to make an appearance today like Herbie did in my last video. And then this one, again, some sketchbook pages. The Mustang logo, which was just copied from this tiny little image here. So the details are probably not very good. And I don't know where I got this image from, but it's apparently it's called a false face mask. Nice pencil sketch of some trees copied from a book that my parents had. And then these 2 images were copied from the same photo, which is strange when I look at it because I can see there's a red bush here and there's a red bush here, but they're a very different shape. And then this kind of blank area here was the start of this kind of big planter. But yeah, that's just some photos of a local park near where I live. Rose and a teddy bear. Again, I've probably still got this teddy bear. He's quite a small one, but yeah, he's probably up in the loft as well. I've got a huge bag full of cuddly toys that I couldn't bear to part with. And here I started a series of sketches of this flower opening up, and it's an Easter cactus flower. It was drawn over a period of 5 or 6 days, and I've labelled the different sort of parts of the flower with what colours they were. For whatever reason I'd decided not to actually colour the first 2, so we've got one in pen, one in pencil, and then on the fully open one I added all the colours. And for whatever reason I decided that I'd draw out little boxes to show which colours I'd used, I don't think I'd done that before or since, to be honest. I don't quite know why I did that, but it's quite interesting to see what colours I used. And this one with the cowslip. I like how I've got the texture on the leaf, because the leaves are like real kind of bubbly bubbly leaves, for want of a better expression. And then here we've got another one where I've labelled the colours and bits and pieces. So 3 different sketches of dandelion clocks in various stages of opening and blowing away. And this one is hawthorn flowers. Again, I've labelled, and I love this one. I mean, it's looks like such a quick, scribbly sketch, but I just really like it. And I did this one when I was walking home from college, and I remember I was holding the sketchbook and holding the branch still as well at the same time, because it was quite windy. But yeah, I really like that one. This is one that I did when I was on holiday with my parents, and I actually got this one framed. Hopefully you can see that okay. It's actually got non-reflective glass, so I'm really hoping that you can see the detail on that. This is one that I did with watercolour pencil and pen, I believe, for some extra detail. And then this, I decided I wanted to draw Michelangelo's David, but I just drew bits and pieces. So I've got not even half a face, one hand, one foot, half his chest and the top of his arm. So yeah, that was my attempt at drawing David in pieces, because it seemed too overwhelming to try and draw the whole sculpture. And then here we've got the start of a series of pages where I sketched some sculptures by Barbara Hepworth. I'd actually been to the Barbara Hepworth Museum in St Ives in Cornwall, and I'd forgotten how beautiful the gardens were, because I've seen the sketches that I did so many times. And then in the folder with my sketches, I actually had some photos. So look at that beautiful setting for the sculptures. So some of these I drew. And then there's a couple of photos of inside in the studio with some unfinished work. But yeah, I remember, as I was going around the gardens doing these sketches, it felt like every time I glanced up, there was a man all dressed in black watching me. And that's probably not how it was at all, but that's how it felt at the time. And looking back now, maybe he was an art student himself, maybe he was just interested to see somebody sketching. But at the time, it kind of creeped me out a little bit that he just, it literally felt like every time I looked up, he was there. But it probably wasn't. It was probably, like 2 or 3 times I probably saw him, but that's how it felt anyway. So yeah, so these are some of the sketches that I did of the finished sculptures. And then this was just some very quick pencil sketches that I did of the unfinished wood sculptures that were inside the studio. And I just did these little like pencil dash lines as kind of where the chisel marks were in the wood. Okay. I loved this page in my sketchbook, and this chap in particular, I remember when I was drawing him, I think I was sat in our camper van in the car park, and this guy was leaning on the railing, and I thought, I've got to draw him really quick because he's not going to be there long. So I did a really quick sketch, And then he was still there, so I added a bit more detail and I added a bit more detail, and he ended up being stood there for quite a long time in the end. But yeah, I really like that one. And then these two little ones of people on the beach, again, I really like them, but they are a bit more brushed, and I say scruffy, but I really like those too. And then this one, this is one where it's like I look at it and I think, what's going on here? And I kind of knew that it would be difficult to see quite what was going on. So I drew a little plan. I just read what I wrote here. A rough sketch of a room in an ancient hut, which they think was either first to third century AD. And then, so this is a plan of the hut. And I was sat here looking in this direction. So what I've drawn here, like this is the little entrance way into this room. And there's even a photo. This is me in my young skinny days, sat sketching this scene. So yeah, so that's a nice little record of it actually happening. And you know, in my more recent sketches, like in my holiday journal, for example, I did a few maps of where I'd been, and I think this is probably, you know, the start of that, of kind of wanting to document not just the view, but to help kind of get an understanding of the context of the view. So although the sketch itself doesn't really look like much, I like the overall thing with the little plan and the sketch. And again, we're still on holiday. I abandoned this sketch where I started drawing the end of a building, and then I redrew it just in pencil. Again, it's not a finished sketch, but I'm quite happy with it. I mean, the chimneys, I mean, what on earth is happening with the chimneys? Who knows? But I quite like it. And then this wall that was along here, at the other end of the wall, I did a quick little sketch of a seagull sat on the corner of the wall. And I like that little seagull. Some ivy with coloured pencils. At the time, from what I'd written, I said I felt like I was out of practice using the coloured pencils and I wasn't too keen on it, but I actually quite like it now. This is perhaps more like what my more recent style is like, with the black outline and then with the colour, but at the time I wasn't particularly happy with it. This one, a bit like when I did the sculpture of David and I just did parts of it, I had attempted to do a self-portrait and just found it too hard, so I just did this one just of my eye, and I really like that. This is a sketch I did of my cousin, and the original, I was at my uncle and auntie's house, and I did this sketch from a school photo that they had, and the original was drawn actually on lined writing paper. So this is a photocopy. I managed to adjust the print quality on the photocopy so that it was pale enough that it didn't copy the lines, but I still got most of the detail on the sketch. I did at a later date try doing a sketch of his sisters, also my cousins, from their school photo, which was taken at the same time, and it was terrible. I just could not get them right. So that's why there's just a picture of one of my cousins. And then this is my mum in her dressing gown and slippers, watching TV. I don't know what she's got in her hand there. Maybe a book or something. Maybe she was, I don't know, doing crosswords while watching telly. Her feet look huge, but apart from that, I quite like it. And then this one where she was getting cozied down. And then following on from that, we've got a close-up with my mum holding a cup of tea. And then this must be on a different day because she's sat on the armchair here, not the sofa, but yeah, fallen asleep. Sorry mum if you see this, I'm sharing with the world a picture of you falling asleep watching telly. Oh, and I love this one. Picture of an engine. For those of you who are into cars, it's a pre-Crossflow 1500 GT. And I can't actually remember if I drew this in person. I believe I did. My dad had quite a few classic cars, so I think this was actually drawn in the garage with an actual engine that my dad had taken out. But it is also possible that I copied it from a picture in a manual or something like that, but I'm pretty sure I drew it in person. So this is the last one of the sort of sketchbook images that I've kept, and then we move on to the actual college work.